or under? Florida State wins more or less than 7.5 games this season.
You are Locked On Seminoles, your daily podcast on the Florida State Seminoles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back into Locked On Seminoles. I am your host, Brian Smith, longtime college football writer and recruiting analyst. Thank you for making Locked On Seminoles your first listen each and every day. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Today, we're going to be talking about Mike Norvell's contract. I've had a few people discuss that recently on the Locked On Seminoles YouTube page, on the comment section. I want to address that in my own take on what will or will not happen. It is a very deep and concerning conversation, if you will. We're also going to talk about 10 players that can help Florida State turn around their fortunes this year. And honestly, a few guys that if they don't hit, Florida State could be in a lot of trouble. And to that point, we're going to talk about Florida State's schedule. Again, 7.5 is been predominantly the win total that I've seen at different sports books, FanDuel, etc. But you're not going to convince anybody one way or the other without really diving into the numbers. You need to be very concrete with it because this is hard. College football has the most transient nature that it's ever had. And right now, quite frankly, Florida State's roster might even surpass what most teams do because of all the changes with the staff too. So it is more than just players leaving. It is also coaches as well. So the 7.5 total comes with the caveat that it's not a high number, but you won 2 games last year. How do you really set the number? So I don't think it's a bad number. I would say it's at least close. And right now I would teeter-totter on 7 or 8 wins. And I want to break this down with you based on everything that we've heard in spring, the offseason, the additions they've had through the transfer portal, like Jeremiah Wilson, etc., Deuce Robinson. Did Florida State improve? Because I did this exercise before spring, but did they really improve themselves since they got done with pretty much what's going on in the portal? I mean, if they added somebody else, it wouldn't be shocking, but it's not likely they're going to add a big-time player. So did they improve since the beginning of spring and all the transfer portal stuff? I'm going to give my take. So the most, I put this in 3 categories: losses, toss-ups, and wins. The games that are most likely to be in these categories. Doesn't mean they will be, but I think these are fair assessments. Bama, at Clemson, at NC State, at Florida, Miami. Those are the 5 most likely losses. Are they going to lose all 5 of those? I doubt it, but hear me out. The toss-up games, in my opinion, are at Doak, Virginia Tech, and Pitt. 2 quality teams with returning quarterbacks, but they're not dominant by any means. These are teams that usually Florida State would beat. But Florida State doesn't usually go 2-10 either. And then the wins. If they don't win these games, there's a lot of questions that need to go into emergency mode. East Texas A&M, Kent State, at Virginia, at Stanford, and Wake Forest. Those are bad football teams. To me, those are 5 wins. If you do not win those 5 games, maybe Norvell doesn't get fired. And again, I will go deep dive on that in the very last segment of the show. But if you don't win those 5 games, like it's a problem. I mean, Stanford is going through a gutting because they just fired their coach in the offseason in complete turmoil. Go look it up. I don't even want to get into it. It's bad. East Texas A&M, Kent State, those are awful football programs. Wake Forest lost their coach. UVA has been a mess for years. They lost their best receiver to Notre Dame. Yeah, I don't see them being good. So that you should be 5-0 basically going into this season. And your win total again, 7.5. It shouldn't be too much to ask that in an additional 7 games, you can win 3. That's not even half of them, technically. So let's dive in and why or why not I think they can win or lose some of these games. Just kind of go over the intel I have on some of these teams. Bama. The reason I don't think Bama's a slam dunk to beat Florida State is twofold. Well, 3. It's at Doak too, but it's mainly 2 reasons. First game of the year, I don't care who the teams are. I don't care if they play in a head coach's backyard. You're going to have some disarray on both teams. As boring as it is, the most likely winner is the team that makes the fewer errors. I know people hate that stuff. It is not exciting. Don't turn it over. Punt the football if you have to. Do not turn the ball over. Both teams will have new quarterbacks. Thomas Castellanos is far superior in terms of experience, but he is new to Florida State. It's not new to Gus Malzahn's offense, which is ironic. The quarterback situation at Bama is not done yet. I don't know how that's going to play out. They might play more than one guy. I'm not going to dive into that until literally August. Like, Alabama has kept that pretty close to the vest, and there's different opinions about who's trending or who's not. Their most talented guys are younger, but it's really awkward for them. But I do trust Kalen DeBoer and his passing attack. Who's going to be their main running back? Ironically, Rodell Williams used to be at Alabama. He's going to get a chance to play against them in the opening game this year for the Noles. Probably going to be the starter for Florida State too. But Alabama's running game, will it be great? Probably not. Will it be pretty good? Yeah, they're good up front. Caden Proctor is going to be a big-time offensive tackle, most likely going to end up in the NFL. Defense is loaded with talent, especially that secondary concerns me. If Florida State's not creative, they're not going to win that game. But again, do you trust Bama to automatically figure out quarterback over the offseason? I do not, because it's not that easy. The board system is not something you're going to just implement with any new quarterback and it just go well. It's going to take some time. So do not expect them to just walk into Doak Campbell Stadium and beat the bejesus out of Florida State. I've seen a lot of people say, oh, it's not going to be close. I think the spread is around 12, but I'm not as sold on that as some others. The other games at Clemson, I think this is the most likely loss on the schedule. Clemson's a top 10 team conservatively. Florida State's probably not going to win there 2 times in a row, and Clemson's just better. They got a senior quarterback. They've got a very quality defense. I don't think it's elite, but it's a quality defense. It's going to be somewhere in the top 15. Secondary's got some questions. But can Florida State throw the ball? We don't know. They're pretty good at running back, not necessarily dominant, but they got a lot of speed on offense. Florida State secondary is a little unsettled based on going out and getting Jeremiah Wilson. That's the easiest pick on this entire schedule to be an L. At NC State, from this list, you need to find a way to win those kind of games if you're Florida State. It's still the most likely of all these games to sit there and just kind of pencil in and say, well, this is also where Florida State used to have a just terrible game and at least come down to the wire against NC State. For whatever reason, they've always struggled playing in Raleigh. It's a tough place to play, but Florida State always had more talent. Does Florida State get over that hump? I would put that game as about as close to a pick 'em as you can get. But NC State, because they're better than Florida State last year and they're at home, I would lean that direction. That shouldn't be the case. Their quarterback play isn't good. Their offense isn't good. They lost a key receiver. But I don't trust Florida State up there. They got to prove it. At UF, who knows what's going to happen with that game. Billy Napier may be fired by then. They do have DJ Lagway, though. Again, quarterback edge will go that direction until otherwise proven. The Miami game's at home. I'm halfway ready to make that a prediction for Florida State because in this series, it seems like the team that shouldn't win wins way too often. And Florida State's not going to be near as bad as they were last year. It's at Doak. You're going to win one of these games. Why couldn't it be Miami? I do not trust Carson Beck one iota. We'll see. Virginia Tech and Pitt, this is where it gets interesting. They're both at home, but again, they got experienced quarterbacks. Florida State needs to win at minimum one of these 2 games. And then again, the 5 games that I've talked about, you have to, these can be no doubters. None of these should be within 2 touchdowns. Again, East Texas A&M, Kent State, Virginia on the road, Stanford on the road, and Wake Forest. Those should be in the 41-17 variety. They should. And the 17 should be 7 to 10 points if the other team scores in the fourth quarter. They're bad. If Florida State has a chance to beat the 7.5 win total, those have to be wins. Just saying. When we come back, I'm going to talk about the key players to help Florida State, at least theoretically, get to that 8-win plateau or more. That is next here on Locked On Seminoles. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and taking control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. It's easy to collaborate with your partner as well. Instead of keeping all your capital in different places, you can track your personal accounts, set goals, and more under Monarch Money without all the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. Which players do you think have to step up the most for the Florida State Seminoles to have a rebound 2025 season? It's been debatable, and I've talked about this before here on Locked On Seminoles. My shift isn't massive, and to be honest, I don't think it should be, but spring ball did bring up a few interesting questions. How much depth did they have at running back? They had a Gavin Sawchuk. So it's, regardless of what you thought it was, that shouldn't be a problem. Rodell Williams, Jalen Lucas, Sawchuk, Cam Davis, Sam Single, they are loaded. So that spot I just took completely out of the equation because somebody's going to be that guy, and they're probably going to do a lot of things in tandem, meaning two running backs in the game. Even they could even put Jalen at slot and still have two running backs in there if they wanted. They can do a lot of different things. It'll be fun. And additionally, I left Thomas Castellanos out of this because obviously he's number one. If you get a transfer quarterback and it doesn't work out, you're in a world of trouble. So in case you're wondering, no, Thomas Castellanos is not on my list because he is the de facto number one. He must be a hit for the Noles. Here's my list updated after spring ball. Number one is Deuce Robinson. Because of all the departures at receiver, this isn't hard. Squirrel White could have been thrown in here too if just at least one of them has to hit big, but I think it's Deuce more than anything else because he's the boundary. If you have to roll coverage to the boundary side, meaning the short side of the field, it's awkward as a defense. It's almost always a scenario where you're playing on an island. You might shift the linebacker out there a little bit, but deeper routes, for the most part, that corner is on an island. He may or may not get help from the safety depending on how the routes are run, what other players are in the game, etc. Deuce Robinson has a big year. Florida State's chances of winning 7 games to 8 games is like almost lock. 9 games wouldn't be surprising. And I'm talking about like 65 catches, 900 yards, 8 touchdowns, and he's certainly capable. 6'6", 220 pounds. He's got 2 years of experience, and now he's the guy at Florida State. Absolutely. Deuce Robinson could do that. But again, if he does not have a good year and or he's banged up out of the lineup, you lost not 1, not 2, but 3 receivers to the portal. You lost a couple of experienced players, and you have a plethora of young receivers with very little experience. Squirrel White will help. Don't get me wrong. He'll play some slot. He'll play some flanker. He'll be a good player. But your boundary is the end-all, be-all. If that guy's a dude, it changes your offense. Number 2, shouldn't shock anybody. He was talked a lot about last season because he didn't live up to expectations. And then even before the spring and during, he was talked about as a guy that's a future NFL player. Daryl Jackson Jr., the defensive tackle. I have no idea what happened last year or this spring. It's been a yo-yo effect. Maybe he realizes it's time to wake up because his immense talent's running out on the hourglass. This is it, brother. You got to figure it out if you're going to go to the NFL. Can't teach 6'6", 330. Can't teach all the athleticism, but it's now. And with Florida State running a 3-man front at least part of the time, I can't imagine any center liking Daryl playing over them at nose guard. Matter of fact, that's a lock. Nobody's going to want that. He's going to cause problems. Florida State should have one of the better run defenses in college football. Experienced front seven. Tony White's very good at coaching it. They've got a very good defensive staff. They brought in Stephon Thompson, and I'll talk about him in a little bit. And they've got valuable players all throughout their transfer portal haul that'll help the front seven. There's no reason to think Florida State won't be good against the run, and Daryl is the pivot man to make that happen. Right there at nose, and you can move him outside sometimes to do some different things with him, but he is the key. If Daryl is on point, Florida State's chances of winning 8 or more, 9 or more, are legit. Could they beat Miami? Could they beat Clemson or anybody? Wouldn't shock me. You stop the run, you have a chance to win football games. That never really changes. Number 3, this one might surprise a few people, but hear me out. Luke Pettibone, the center that transferred in from Wake. This is not a good football player. This is a really good one, and he is at the pivot on the other side making line checks. Remember, Castellanos is new. Most of the offensive line is new. They have running backs coming in. They also have a guy coming off injury. You've got a new receiver, etc. You need some chemistry in the middle, an experienced player. That's where Pettibone comes in. Just getting in the right protection for pass plays and just getting in the right play, period, when you run the ball. He's going to help before the play, during the play, on the sidelines, practice, preparing for games. The eyes of a center on what is happening in that room with the offensive line, all of it, it's very important. A lot of it can't be really graded by Pro Football Focus or even somebody like me that analyzes it. It's the confidence in the other players when he makes a check that it's going to work against the front that's coming. Having a veteran is important. And the guy behind you, Thomas Castellanos, he must believe as well. If you do not, you're going to get your butt kicked. Florida State's offensive line last year was the equivalent of a human sieve, 5 sieves, because they just couldn't figure it out all year. It was embarrassing. This line is very highly rated in terms of all the production, albeit from mostly different programs. If you're going to sew it together, Pettibone is the key. He is the pivot man on offense. If he's not on point, Florida State will struggle. I think he's going to have a great year. James Williams is number 4. I think he's an athlete on the edge that really needs to hit. Freaky talent, focused guy, really likes Coach White. He really likes pot roast. This should be a slam dunk. 6-7 sacks, I think, is pretty conservative estimate. The question I have is how good is he against the run / are they going to play him as the stand-up and on strong side? Are they going to move him around, leave him in one spot? I have no idea. I just know he can play football, and they're very high on it. He must be a hit as well. Number 5, this is another transfer. And this one's a little puzzling to me, but Florida State wasn't happy with the situation in the secondary after spring. They go get Jeremiah Wilson from Houston, who's been very successful. Played at Osceola High School down at Kissimmee, and he's a kid that played at Syracuse for a year, 2 at Houston. He's been a starter, very, very productive. Maybe he understands zone better. Maybe it's something else. I don't know. But Florida State staff was very, very high on him. Now the question is, does he find a way to not just be good, but like, can he be a leader and be a game changer in some of those games that are pivotal, close games? Maybe it's against Pitt. Maybe it's against Miami, whatever. He's expected to be a starter. I would guess yes, but it's still not a lock. We'll see, but he needs to be one of the key players for Florida State. Maybe it's even at different spots. Maybe he plays some nickel or something too. We'll find out. But Florida State went after him, so he needs to contribute. Next, this is another transfer, and I mentioned him earlier, Stephon Thompson. Even if he's not the full-time starter, and I have no idea how that'll play out in the fall, you're going to have different guys. They're going to come in the lineup, and it's kind of like with center. Making the calls, making the checks. Florida State plays a bunch of experienced quarterbacks this year, man, a bunch. So making sure everything's right on 1st and 10. The run defense, to not give the opposing quarterback an easy day on 2nd and 3rd down, that's important. And also just being good in pass coverage. Stephon's somebody that'll help. And if he's not the one, how about this? A combination of Omar Graham Jr. and Elijah Herring, the transfer from Memphis, in addition to Stephon coming over from Nebraska. They all need to be on point with leadership and making sure everything's consistent. Last year, it was so frustrating because Florida State would have like 9 plays in a row. Run defense would be pretty good. But then they'd have like 2 guys go to the same gap and a running back go for 25 yards. Just completely shoot themselves in the foot. That's why they need veterans at the linebacker level, and they should. Nicholson should be a lot better too. They should have not just a way better offense or a linebacker group. They should have one of the better ones in the conference. Next, this is probably not going to surprise anybody, but just overall with Tony White's defense, it's very safety dominant. They'll use 3 safeties at times. The whole. I don't care who starts, and I don't care at which spots. But I do know that the safeties have to be on point. Their defense is going to make a lot of guys move around, post-snap. They're going to show a lot of different looks before the ball is snapped to try to create confusion. So somebody out of the group needs to be a stalwart, plus be a leader, get everybody lined up. But whichever player or players that it is, one of those safeties for Florida State's got to be a dude. James Brown's an easy pick. There are other guys as well, but I don't care. I know a lot of them were banged up this spring. That's very unfortunate. One of them's got to be a dude. Next, this is pretty simple. I'm just going to say it. Get the ball to Landon Thomas. He didn't play a ton until like middle of the season on. Get him the football. I don't care if he's a tight end. Get him the football, especially in the red zone. I will go bonkers. I will go berserk if Florida State does not throw him the football. He deserves it. Very athletic, 6'5", 240, got very soft hands. Make him a part of the offense. And if Mario Williams comes back to the offense too, by all means, we'll see what happens. Number 9, Gunnar Hansen, left tackle. That's kind of self-explanatory. At some point, he's got to be in there. You got a right-handed quarterback. The blind side is an automatic. Simple as that. And then finally, I mentioned this earlier with Deuce being number 1. Do I expect this necessarily? No. But it would be a godsend. One of, and I don't know which one it will be. Wayne McCoy, maybe it's some, I don't care which one it is. It could be BJ Gibson, whatever. One of the young receivers, not a combination, but one of the young receivers needs to be definitively improved this fall. Consistency. Can hold down a spot. Could be a starter if need be. Can be a playmaker. When he's inserted into the lineup, the other team must notice him. All of that. Not just like one game it's this guy, one game it's that guy. The staff has to know when this player comes into the game, the other team must respect it, and you can count on him as well. So will any of the young receivers step up in that manner, really take their game up? If they do, Florida State's chances, again, talking about that 7.5 win total, goes up dramatically. When we come back, I'm going to talk about Mike Norvell's contract. Again, as I noted at the beginning of the show, there are a lot of questions about what could happen or what may or may not happen with Mike Norvell after this season. I'm going to address that here on Locked On Seminoles next. Get the supplies you need from the site made for the skilled trades, Supply House. Whether you're into plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400-plus top brands, you'll find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. And for trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free Trade Master program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage. Now it's your turn. Join the Trade Master program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Mike Norvell's contract has been one of the most talked about subjects on Locked On Seminoles for a long time. And it should have been. It still is. As I mentioned at the opening, it's been something that's brought up from time to time on Locked On Seminoles YouTube page. The comment section will bring it up. And there have been people talking about whether or not it should be a topic all the time. I just want to address a few things right off the bat. Number one, as I said, in the middle of last year, the end of last year, after the last part of the season and into recruiting, all that, he should have been fired. The reason he wasn't was because of the contract. There is no if, no and, no but about it. Florida State can't comment on it because they're not going to gain anything from it, but it's just true. He was owed well over $50 million. To Norvell's credit, although he doesn't deserve a lot after a 2-10 season, he gave back part of the money to help out the program in different ways. It's commendable. But it'd be more commendable for you to win some darn football games. 2-10 at Florida State is about like jumping over a mud puddle that's 1 inch long. It's not real hard. This is Florida State football. So the question a lot of people have asked, or I've gotten message about, et cetera, does Norvell survive if they win 6-7 games this year? And in my opinion, I think it's a lock. They're still going to owe him roughly $45-50 million, something like that. I don't know the exact total. But unless he wins 2 or 3 games, he's back, brother. They owe him way too much money based on what I'm told and based on what the boosters are willing to do. Now, that can change in a heartbeat. As I've said many times, the caveat is always the same. In the sport marketing or sport admin world, like when I was in grad school, they called it the bubble. One of the main reasons you want a lot of home games is to get boosters on campus as often as possible because you never know when somebody's going to stroke a big check. Well, in this case, it might take several boosters. But if somebody, for whatever reason, wanted to find a way to get him gone, if, let's say Florida State goes 5-7, it's just a disaster. They're losing games like they lose at home to Wake Forest or something crazy like that. After last year, who knows? If that happened, I could see more people ponying up because at some point you just got to stop the bleeding. But also got to remember, got the stadium and all these other things going on trying to lead the ACC. The school just doesn't want to spend any quote unquote extra dollars, especially after going out and getting Malzahn, getting Tony White and all that. Even at 5-7, I wouldn't guarantee you he's gone. This can be frowned upon or anything else, but it's about dollars and cents. It's not the greatest time right now for Florida State in terms of finances. The timing is awful, not bad, awful to have their football program take a fall on its face. It's reality. Would I like to see him gone? As I noted before, yes. Do I think he will be gone after this next season? Not really. Outside of, again, 3-4 wins, I just don't think he's going to get fired. We'll see if I'm wrong, but it would take an assortment of embarrassments, like getting beat 38-7 in the game against Bama or something like that in the home opener. That wouldn't be exactly how you want to open Doak Campbell Stadium after the renovation, which, by the way, looks fantastic. For those of you who have not seen the photos, they really did a nice job. So again, Norvell was probably here for the foreseeable future. We'll see what he does, and this year's a big part of it, but I don't think he's going anywhere. Thank you once again for making Locked On Seminoles your first listen each and every day. Truly appreciate you stopping in to talk some Noles with me. Please hit that like button, that subscription, and above all else, tell your friends. Florida State football never goes out of style. I'd love for them to come over and check it out and comment too. The best way to help the algorithm for this channel is to comment. It's the new thing with YouTube in particular. Comment down below. Let me know what you think. And if you got a question or if there's a suggestion you have, something you'd like to hear for a topic, I'm all ears. Thank you once again for checking out Locked On Seminoles, and we will see you again soon.